This is a BMW Z4M Coupe. A machine of beauty and power, a true masterpiece of automotive engineering and something very special. And this is the mighty Gordon River Dam, standing at 140 metres high, the tallest dam in all of Tasmania, a testament to human engineering. But why, you may ask, would someone travel 1,000 kilometres and cross oceans to bring these two together for one opening shot? The answer is simple. These two share an unspoken bond. They are both masterpieces of human ingenuity, yet hidden gems that the world has yet to discover. So what exactly is the Z4M Coupe? Well, it's basically a Z4M convertible but wearing a permanent hard hat. But given the car was designed as a convertible first, it means that the coupe has been blessed with a super stiff chassis, more than double that of the convertible and even more than the legendary E46 M3. And speaking of the M3, it's this car that has the very last example of the iconic S54 engine. Not a bad resume then. Let's go take a look inside and out to see what makes this car from the mid-2000s so special. When this car was released in 2006, it was a colossal improvement on the Z3M Coupe, but I wasn't a massive fan of the styling. 17 years later, however, this car is, in a word, handsome. It looks good from all angles, and with that long bonnet, rearward driving position and short overhangs, it has classic sports car proportions. It's also fitted with a set of genuine M3 CSL wheels, which was never an option on the car, but finishes it off perfectly and is worth every very, very expensive German cent. And then as you look out the side mirrors, you see the massive flared arches. Looks like the wide hips of like a thick woman with 2 C's, maybe 3. The mirrors are tiny, and even the rear view mirror, you've got this little porthole that's looking out the back of the car, and you can see enough, but it's certainly not big. And the C-pillars in this car are enormous. Do you find that you almost run over cyclists? The speedo in the instrument cluster is literally impossible to see. It goes up in increments of 20 kilometers an hour, and honestly, you're just sort of guessing. Maybe 65, maybe 70, maybe 100, who knows? The steering wheel in this car is suspiciously girthy, which I think some BMW drivers probably like. Stepping inside the cabin, it's still a very nice place to sit, with supple leather on almost every surface. The heated seats are very comfortable and supportive too, and the driving position is pretty much perfect. Being a coupe with a big rear hatch, it means that the boot is enormous for a car this size and fits me almost with ease. The interior of the car is also sprinkled with a few relics of a bygone era. And now, for some reason, all I can think about is playing Snake. Television? If this works. Holy shit. Holy shit. Driving along in traffic like this at normal speeds, the car's great. It really does the job fine. The gearbox is easy to use, the clutch is light, the steering's light. It really feels nice and easy to drive. My only feedback is on the suspension, which is too harsh, really. So the sport button, just to be clear, does absolutely nothing except make the throttle hypersensitive. Oh, it's very sensitive. I don't like it. Not really. When you're driving really, really hard and you're trying to do a heel-toe downshift, I think it makes sense. But it's a really, really specific application where it works. But otherwise, it's best to leave it off. The faster you drive, the more rewarding the car is to drive. It's not as in drive. What are we doing now? 60 kilometers an hour, just poodling along, and it's actually less fun doing this. The car feels sort of like it's almost frustrated or bored with driving like this. Sort of eggs you on like this. Let me just check my speed. Hello. This car feels so old school when you drive it in all the best ways. Like the gearbox feels old school, the hydraulic steering feels old school. It rewards you for all the right inputs. You know, it doesn't coddle you in any way. If you get a heel toe downshift wrong, the car will over rev or under rev, and it'll feel bad. But that's because you've driven the car poorly, not because the car's poor. So it really rewards you as a driver for nailing all the inputs. The centerpiece of this car is the engine. It is magnificent to rev out. Every 2,000 RPM, it feels like a different character, a different note, different buzz from the engine. Down low, it's this torquey, lovely lump of a motor. In the mid-range, it's sort of zingy. And then through the top, it sounds and feels like a race car. It's pulling and it's tearing at the leash, trying to get away from you. It's fantastic. There are very few pleasures in life like revving out a naturally aspirated motor at 8,000 RPM. And this one hits all the fizzy spots. Let me check my speed. Still don't know. Do you know what this motor is like? It's like a Greek goddess who's just been bathed in coconut oil. That silky smooth. You do, you really want to rev it out. You want to feel all the power, and it's rewarding to rev it out. You would think with a sort of biggish 3.5 litre straight six that it wouldn't be as exciting, you know, but this is one of the best engines ever produced. It is so satisfying. Oh, fourth to third, come at me.
Gear change is one of the things that the higher RPM, the better it is. And if you're changing it down to 2 and 3,000, then it's very notchy, knuckly in that BMW way.
That downshift, tell me, does that ever get old?
Nah, fourth to third.
Fourth to third. Oh, that's my favourite one. Yeah. Let me do it again. Oh, let me do it again. Ah. Fourth to third gear. Can we just discuss that again? I'm just going to make like an entire segment of this video about fourth to third gear. That's better than sex. Better than sex. Interestingly, the suspension is probably harsher than what I was expecting it to be. I'm sort of shocked at how stiff the suspension is. Like little bumps, big bumps, you feel everything. Like even if I go over these cat eyes, you feel it. It certainly doesn't absorb the bumps as well as what I would think from a car that probably was, I don't know, used most of the time by dentists driving to and from work. It definitely feels like it's tuned for like a racetrack. Because the engine is so far back in the engine bay and it's enormous, and that bonnet is so long, you really end up sitting almost over the rear wheels, which gives a completely unique driving experience. It's very much GT car. That's the good thing about starting with the convertible first and then building out to a coupe. You get a chassis that ultimately is even stiffer than what it should be, and far stiffer than, say, the M3 of the same generation. The steering isn't the quickest rack. It's comparing to something modern again. It's hydraulic, but when you turn, it doesn't. It's not like hyperactive. And I think like mid-corner in this car, you can adjust the car with both throttle and steering. You don't feel like you're gonna just put the thing into snap oversteer. And it grips. You end up going faster in this car than what you think you're going because it's so capable. I think you need to be quite careful because it's such a torquey motor, and then as you get higher up in the rev range, that torque is then just replaced with brute power. And even with fat rear tyres, it feels like it's definitely enough to overpower them. This car, in the hands of a bad driver with traction control off, would see them in a ditch or rolling down that enormous hill down there. We've lost something in cars, because something is similar then. I accelerated, the front wheels sort of lifted off the ground a little bit as the car squatted, and the steering got just that little bit lighter.
that sort of finesse, that sort of feeling, that feedback, you do not get in a modern car anymore. It's gone. They've engineered that out of cars, and they're worse. Sports cars are worse for it. So what were some of the natural competitors for this car? We've got the Cayman, the SLK, because that was a hardtop as well. It was a hardtop convertible. It's mainly those two, because they were the German ones. The 370Z it feels more similar to this than different in its approach. Front engine, 6-cylinder, torquey engine, but it literally sounds like a box of gravel has been thrown into a washing machine with some nuts and bolts and turned on the spin cycle compared to this. Effective in its outcome, in that I reckon these would be similar in speed, but this just feels way better. Driving this car feels like you're driving the end of an era. After this was released, the next generation of BMWs, or any car really, were riddled with technology and electronic nannies, and had dual clutch transmissions, electronic power steering, turbocharged engines. And where we end up today, every car is objectively better than where it was 10 years ago, but we've lost something in that process. And driving this car is a reminder of that, and we'll never get this back. This was a period of time, and we can only look back on it with rose-colored glasses, but remind ourselves what it was like to drive in a world where there was little speed cameras and people enjoyed driving for the sake of driving. Goodbye 2006. We had fun.